right, this is gonna be completely unscripted. To me, it's better to kind of show you this process because I also can't share exactly everything with you since this is important for my West Marches campaign. And if you're gonna play in that, then I don't want you guys to know all the secrets, you know? So this is gotta be me making some stuff off the cuff, but I feel like this is my general process when coming up with these things. And I think that it might help other people figure it out. This is part 2 of the series. Oh God, we're already off to a great start. I hope you've rolled your Constitution saving throw because I don't know that you're gonna survive this rambling. Also, the DC is probably higher than 15 at this point. We're gonna look at Notion and how I'm using it. Everything you see here is still a work in progress, so be kind. Nothing you see here is final. That said, I'm about to show you some of the world building aspect, and I actually don't use Notion for that. I have it here. I have my Lore Keeper. Actually, this is the old cover because I've had this one for a long time. But this is my Lore Keeper notebook. I'm sure you can't actually see it. It's disc bound. I don't know if you can take any page out, move it anywhere, pop it back in. But this is meant for world building. So I literally have everything in here about my world. This world has been in my brain as well as in like a homebrew campaign, as well as like other aspects of my life for the last, I want to say like 3 or 4 years, although the original idea started probably 5 years before 2020 for sure. All the stuff that I'm about to kind of share with you guys is not something that I just created overnight, and you don't have to create everything. I feel like if you're running a West Marches campaign, you could totally just pick up someone else's setting and run with it. You could do the Forgotten Realms, you could do Drakkenheim or any of those other settings and probably be better off in some ways because I still have to create a lot of aspects for this world to make it a little bit better for a West Marches campaign. Personally, running a homebrew world or a world that is, or a setting that most people don't play in that isn't Faerun makes me as a DM feel less pressure. And this is not reflective of my players or anything, but I think when I go to run games that are in Faerun, other people know way more about the lore and the history of that world than I will ever know. I have played Baldur's Gate 3, Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. There's a bunch of Baldur's Gate games on the Xbox as well. I have played Neverwinter. I've been in several campaigns that are focused in Faerun or have pulled parts of Faerun out. So I'm not like completely ignorant of that world's lore, but I do feel like when it is somebody else's, I feel like there's pressure there to keep it true to that world and that setting. And I know that's a stupid thing. They created that world more as guidelines so that you can play around and your campaign can do whatever you want. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter as long as the DM says it's this way or that way and you're clear with your players and all of that. Like, I get it. But I just feel this unnecessary pressure to provide the world to players in the manner that it's been presented. That said, like Drakkenheim, I absolutely love because it's a different setting. And if I mess up stuff a little bit, most of my players have never even heard of Drakkenheim before this campaign. So to me, that's like the ideal. If I mess something up, it's fine. We can talk about it later, that kind of thing. This is even better when it's homebrew. I can just make stuff up and it's perfectly fine. And it's just part of the lore. And then players can make stuff up and I don't have to be like, oh, well, I think they meant this by X, Y, Z. Hopefully the lighting isn't weird. I'm sorry if it's weird again. I have the window shut, but if I record during the day, it gets really bright here. Rambling already. Okay. Editor's side note here. The other reason that I'm doing homebrew is also I've run plenty of campaigns that weren't my own world. Now that I've done that several times, I have a good handle on what makes a good bad guy. I've also had to, through that experience, make crap up a lot because your players always see things that are unexpected. And I think that has also made it so that I can create a homebrew world and setting, and I know what kind of things my players would look into. That's why I also mentioned that I think for my West Marches campaign, I have to add a lot to the setting. I don't know all these different players who are going to come into this world, but also it has to be a little bit more simplified and easier to kind of just push for exploration and not, worry about the politics within the realm, that kind of thing. Back to the video. Let's go to the Notion template thing I have here. So this is Notion. This is where I think I'm going to share everything, all the information about the campaign, the rules, the players, etc. I'm not going to go into any of those nitty-gritty details yet. We're just going to focus on the world as well as big bad guy, so that if you are thinking about making your own campaign, even if it's not a West Marches, this could probably apply to you. Here I have like a little campaign description at the top, which I feel like everybody should have like a 1-paragraph thing to present players with that talks about your campaign. So this says, the lands of Remnant are swarming with hordes of monsters. This has forced all civilian life to reside within these large dome cities beneath the aurora spheres, a lost and ancient technology that researchers are still trying to replicate. Only those strong enough or with enough training live outside the spheres, and even then the risk is high. All of the free cities of Remnant are now on the verge of overpopulation. That is, until they found the small sphere located on the edge of an eastern continent. You're part of the Honor Guard, an elite force of mercenaries tasked with exploring this new continent and finding more domes or the means to create more. That kind of sums up everything for the West Marches. That also includes the central goal of the players. So what I mean is, you definitely need a uniting reason that this party is together, right? And for West Marches, I think you can even simplify it more because, people are coming and going. So they're all a part of the Honor Guard. There are technically factions in my world, we'll talk about that they could have backgrounds in, but they're all Honor Guard. So they're all here to do this one task. Sure, they can have their own personal goals here and there. Maybe that helps them, explains why they're proficient in certain things like history, but that is the overall campaign right there. Is they're looking for new domes, whether that is via actual domes that are working, or finding them that are broken that they can rebuild, or the means to create this technology, as well as just supplies for this expansion into the east, because obviously they're not going to want to have things shipped overseas every time they need something. That's our main goal, okay? Now I also include a lot of other world lore in here, and a lot of that I could just do a whole dump. Like there's factions, there's religions, there's like a whole bunch of stuff. I'm not gonna go through all of that because again, I don't think you need all of that to do a West Marches campaign, because you could just use somebody else's setting. And to come up with all of that is kind of what this notebook is for. It has prompts, and I've done the research before on, what kind of tenets should you give different gods, and what kind of, history timelines should you consider, and things like that. And all of this stuff has been developed over time. So I'm not going to go into all of that. But what you do need for a West Marches, or for any campaign, is a big bad guy, right? Obviously, for reasons, I cannot go into exactly who my bad guy is and why they're doing what they're doing. I know that there's going to be people who will watch this who will want to join the West Marches campaign, and I don't want any spoils. So instead, what I'm going to do is actually create a new villain with you guys right now, which I'm sure will go really well. Here's the things. And again, I don't want to keep tooting my own horn here, but I actually have a whole, don't look at it though. Hold on. I actually have a whole story arc outline in my notebooks that helps with this. And I'm showing you a blank one right now because the actual details are on the other side. But it includes everything I'm about to talk about here, as well as some extra things that might help, and an event timeline. It's so hard to see, sorry. An event timeline, you've got all this, who's your big bad guy, the motive, all of these things that I'm about to go over with you guys. My bad guy for this campaign, I'm tweaking them a little bit. They're already created, so I thought I would just go through kind of the steps. So at the top here, I've kind of summarize the main goal again. The Aurora Spheres of the Free Cities of Remnant are filling to capacity. The players are members of the Honor Guard, tasked with exploring eastward in search of new domes, technology, and supplies that will help the ever-expanding population of humanity. One sentence just to keep me on track. This is the main goal of the characters. Now we're gonna go into the villains. So naming things is hard. But obviously you need a name, maybe a general description. In particular, what I do for description is I also include like keywords, like how they talk, and maybe any tics they have, any expressions they have a lot, those kinds of things that help me role play that bad guy. Next, we'll go over like the motive. So obviously, why are they doing evil? Why they doing evil? What's driving them to do these things? Is it power? Is it greed? What is it? Actually, we should do this first. Sorry. Let me move this up actually, because this should be first. So what happens when they win? What's their goal? What do they get? What happens to the world? And then what's their plan to get to this goal? So what do they need to accomplish? Are they trying to gain allies, followers, armies? Are they looking for something? That kind of thing. This one to me is super important. So how do they respond to failure? Because if you're doing it right, your players are going to succeed, right? They're going to keep thwarting the enemy's plans. How do they respond to that? So what are they going to do in retaliation for being stopped? Maybe the players got the item before they did, so what do? Do they try to steal it back from them, or do they try to rush to another artifact or something like that? Like what are their responses to that failure? And then of course the last one we have is like the allies. Of course it's below my head. Here you go. Is the allies and the retainers. Who's on their team? Do they only employ goblins? Do they have 3 main officers who support them, that kind of thing? So I'm gonna pause here and I'm gonna fill this out for you guys, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about it. Okay, hi. I moved my head over here and I made the window a little smaller so you guys could see a little bit better. I think it needs a little bit more in terms of his plan, but this guy doesn't actually exist and I don't want to spend too much time developing him only to not use him. I created Amathar the Unchained. He is this large, bulky fighter. He has clipped hair, beard, humanoid male, has a booming voice, aggressive stances, and is very quick to anger. Right there, I've got a whole vision for him. I could roleplay this guy pretty easily just by re-looking at this. His motive is that he believes the current rule in the Free Cities is weak, and that the weak don't deserve to live within the domes. He believes that strength is everything. In other words, he thinks the population issue in the Free Cities is because they're letting the weak live in the domes, whereas they should be letting the strong people live there and let the weak kind of survive on their own outside the domes, and that will kind of kill off some of the population to allow them to thrive. What's his goal? What do they do what happens if they win? So Amathar wants to rule the eastern continent. He wants to take over and claim any domes first, prevent the weak, oops, that's the wrong kind of weak, prevent the weak from taking shelter there so that he can control the population and prevent the same outcome that's happening in the Free Cities in this new realm. So his plan is to gather up a team to search the new continent, find a dome before the Honor Guard do. He wants to build up an army within that new dome and secure supply lines, and obviously any technological advances he can get from, excavating ruins or whatever. And then, of course, after he starts building up his own army, he's going to use that army to take over the Honor Guard dome, prevent the more weak civilians from coming over and entering port, and then he would love to conquer the rest of the Eastern lands under his banner. So he'll start to expand beyond those 2 cities. So how will he respond to failure? So spitefully is what I wrote. He will send strike teams to sabotage them, take out supply lines, take out the small Honor Guard teams. He wants to cause chaos in the Honor Guard city when he loses. And I said for some of his allies and his retainers, he would ally himself himself with giants and ogres, and that he would find in tribes on the eastern continent and use them to take over the rest. I didn't finish the rest of the eastern continent. So with that, you can probably get up and go with what we've created right here. You can obviously take this a step further, hammer out that plan a little bit more. Also, as you start playing, I feel like that plan, of course, will be tailored to what your players and how your players react to that is. But there you go. You already have a villain. This, again, caveat, not my villain. So this is not going to be a part of this, a part of the West Marches campaign. I just didn't want to give you all of the information for my actual bad guy. Another thing I would recommend doing is kind of having more than one villain. The other thing I might add on here is there might be some old gods giving Amathar power and also trying to sow chaos in the realm, that kind of thing. Something that is innately evil, but I think that this is a good starting point for a villain, and I hope that you guys can kind of come up with something already. This is rambly and long, but as you can see, I'm making progress with the West Marches campaign stuff. Yeah, so next part, I think we'll do the boring stuff, the administrative stuff I need to consider when running a West Marches for so many people. So many people have also started joining, and I'm like, nothing's ready yet, guys. I already had like 30 people who were interested before I posted any videos about this series. That's a little bit overwhelming, but it'll all work itself out in the end. Editor KYLIE here again. I just want to add, you can totally join the Discord to learn more about the West Marches campaign. Obviously, I'll be continuing to post these updates. I have no idea when we're going to start the West Marches, so please just be patient with me. And the other thing I want to add is if you're looking to support me, obviously the West Marches campaign, I don't make money on that kind of stuff. I mean, I do make money a little bit of ad money, not a lot, about $50 a month on YouTube revenue. And so, you know, anything that you can do will help, whether that's, you know, just sharing it and having more people subscribe, but also joining my Patreon. For Patreon folks, they also get things like behind the scenes for the magazine I'm creating that's going to be releasing in January. All of these videos are on there as well, but they are ad-free. And then, of course, you can also become a member on YouTube, and I do live streams occasionally just for members and patrons. So there's a whole bunch of ways you can support me. There's also the shop where you can buy that notebook that it's right here. I don't know, this is a different one actually. Anyway, so you can buy any of the notebooks in my shop, and that also helps me and also helps me pay my sister, which is fabulous. So yeah, just, you know, if you're looking for ways to help, those are great ways to help encourage me to keep doing what I'm doing. And yeah, back to the video. I will see you guys. Bye. So much rambling. So sorry.